Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Yudi. And I would like to thank everyone right at the start for joining this presentation. We're really pleased that you're taking an interest in this unique opportunity. It's not often that the credit union offers shares in its capital for members. And so this opportunity is unique. It doesn't come around that often. And I think it'll provide a much better opportunity to participate in the growth and the success of the Ukrainian Credit Union Limited, and at the same time get a better financial reward than what's currently being offered through GIC rates and lower risk investments. I'm now going to go over and switch to our presentation as soon as this share screen kicks in. Are you all able to see that? I guess you're on mute, so that's okay. This presentation should be able to give you a pretty decent background information on the new 75th anniversary Class A shares of the Ukrainian Credit Union. This class of shares carries the same weight, the same privileges and priorities as the other Class A shares, the 2010 issue, the 65th anniversary issue, and the existing Soyuz shares. So it's the exact same class. It has priority over all other capital of the credit union, and it has some special features to it that we're going to go through as we go through the presentation. And why is it not going forward? There we go. These securities that are being offered, they are not deposits, and therefore they are not insured by DICO, the Deposit Insurance Corporation of Ontario. They guarantee deposits and other monies held in accounts with the Ukrainian Credit Union, but this is actually the equity of the credit union. So you're investing in the share capital of the credit union. This is a regulatory requirement. And so in order for the Ukrainian Credit Union to grow and continue with its financial success, it needs to grow its capital base. That's a requirement by regulators. And so this is an opportunity for the credit union to have the capital in place for future growth and future success. This presentation will provide general information. If you want to know greater details about the 75th anniversary Class A shares, you will need to get a copy of the offering statement, which is available at all of our branches, including the branch at Erie, where the Wealth Strategies Group is located. And I believe at head office on Evans also will have some copies of the offering statement. Why are we offering shares right now? First of all, it's to honor the 75th anniversary of Ukrainian Credit Union. We are now past the 75th anniversary, and so this share offering is basically a way to kind of honor that achievement. The credit union has been around for over 75 years, successfully growing together with the Ukrainian community in Ontario. And as the community has grown and become more sophisticated, so has the Ukrainian Credit Union Limited. And so it's an opportunity to honor that great achievement. Also, as I mentioned earlier, it's a regulatory requirement. So as the credit union grows, it needs to have a greater amount of regulatory capital in place, and this share offering will help support that. And finally, as we grow and become more successful, and we want to continue to provide the best service, the best products, the best opportunities to grow your business, your personal assets, the credit union wants to participate in that going forward, and therefore raising regulatory capital is going to help us do that. So this graph here shows you what the regulatory capital requirement is for the credit union and then what we actually hold. And so you can see that the credit union loves to hold a greater amount of capital than is actually required by regulators. What this does is build a great cushion so that we can continue to grow our business and lend our money to the community and to our members, but at the same time staying well within regulatory requirements. So we hold capital above and beyond what is required by regulators. This is also a reflection of the extreme fiscal responsibility of our senior management. Our senior management constantly debates on how much capital do we need in place for the things that we want to do, and they will never sacrifice financial prudence for growth. And therefore, we always carry much more capital than is required, because it's the protection and the safety of our membership that comes first, and then the growth will come second. So our senior management has been conservative and extremely fiscally responsible and prudent, and that's the reason we carry the excess capital. However, there are growth opportunities. The credit union does want to participate in that. We understand that that's how we're going to continue successfully for the next 75 years, and therefore we're providing this opportunity and making this Class A 75th anniversary Class A share offering. So the principal use of the proceeds and the purpose of this offering is to add to the credit union's regulatory capital in order to provide for the future growth, development, and stability of the credit union. So we're adding regulatory capital. We want to be able to be there to grow with the rest of the community. We also want to invest in real property, people, and technology. And that's the way the credit union is going to be able to provide ever increasing sophisticated and better and more effective products and services to our membership. We also want to reward our members with a higher return opportunity. Given the current situation in the economy, not just in Canada, but globally, interest rates are extremely low as governments and central banks try to cushion the impact of COVID-19. Global economies have had to shut down, Canada included. Travel has been restricted. Trades in goods and services has been negatively impacted by all of this. A lot of people have had to sacrifice time at work in order to protect themselves and their families from the current pandemic with the COVID-19 virus. And what this has done is caused governments and central banks to lower interest rates basically to zero. And so in any kind of a guaranteed investment certificate or investment opportunity, interest rates are extremely low. Through the share offering, the credit union can actually offer a higher return opportunity and basically provide our members with the chance to participate in the share capital of the credit union. Now, although there's no guarantee on these shares, it is backed by the 75-year history of the credit union and the extremely successful, conservative, and very experienced senior management of the credit union. So that's basically what you're investing in, is the ability for us to continue to invest and participate in the growth of the community here in Ontario. Priority. The next set of slides will explain the priority for payout of the Class A investment shares in the event that something should happen to the credit union. Now, this triangle here, or pyramid, kind of shows the priority of payments in the event that the credit union would be wound up. So the first and foremost, whatever liquidity is available pays out the Class A shares. The second level of capital would be the membership shares, and that's the $150 per account that members set aside in each of the accounts that they open up with the credit union. That capital doesn't go anywhere. It's not a cost, it's just a share in the credit union, $150, and in the event that you close your accounts or anything like that, that $150 is returned to you. But it sits set aside because that's part of the share capital of the credit union. Finally, our retained earnings is the lowest stage of our regulatory capital that the credit union has. And you can see based on this pyramid, the largest amount of capital sitting there is the $36.28 million. That is our retained earnings. That's the first line of defense before in the event that something should happen. So there's a really big cushion with respect to the capital structure of the credit union, and it's that retained earnings that is the first line of defense, then membership shares, and then Class A shares. So Class A shares are the most senior within the capital structure, and it would be the first priority with respect to any kind of a payout in the event that the credit union is wound up. So again, priority over any other shares in the credit union. It also has priority in any dividends that are paid out, because both the Class A shares and the member shares do pay dividends, and it has a priority in the final payout. Now, in past years, members, I know because I'm a member of the credit union as well, and I hold membership shares, we've voted to defer or not defer so much as to direct the dividends that were paid to members to causes that were supporting Ukraine in its continued fight for independence and sovereignty. So those kind of issues are voted at the annual general meeting on what to do with the members' dividends. And in past years, the membership has elected to use it for those causes, which are very noble and actually pertinent, because the members of the Ukrainian credit union still maintain a strong relationship with Ukraine, and many have family members still in Ukraine. And so those were some of the issues that we would focus on with respect to the membership shares. These Class A shares is a direct financial payout to holders of the shares, and it has nothing to do with any kind of vote on decision on what to do. The board of directors does decide on the Class A shares. The dividends paid out on the Class A shares, and they make that decision on a quarterly basis. And historically, there's been a decision that we would pay a share at least annually, but the tradition has been for probably since the very beginning is to make the payment on a quarterly basis. And each quarter, there is an announcement by the board of directors as to what that rate would be, and then the payment would come following that on a quarterly basis. So why invest in these shares? So if you're looking for a higher rate of return over term deposits, or GICs for that matter right now, these shares currently pay out an annual rate of 4%. And so on a quarterly basis, that would be 1% each quarter being paid out. If you're looking for an investment with a higher return, but at a lower risk versus anything that's publicly traded, the shares in the Ukrainian credit union, whether it's these 75th anniversary Class A shares, or the 65th anniversary Class A shares, or the 2010 shares, or the Soyuz shares, they are not marketable securities. So there's pluses and minuses with respect to that. The plus is you don't have the fluctuation in the value of those shares as you do with publicly traded stocks and equities. These shares are not publicly traded, therefore their price of $1 per share remains $1 per share, irrespective of what's going on in the markets. And so there's no fluctuation in their value. The dividend that's paid out, which is declared by the board of directors, can change, and there's no guarantee that a dividend will be paid out on these, but the historical trend has been that the dividend that has been paid out at a rate of at least 1% higher than the 5-year GIC rate. And I think over the last 5 years, it's paid well above that 1% over the 5-year GIC rate. This is a vehicle for long-term savings, and it's a way for our members to participate in the success of the Ukrainian credit union. Let's now turn a little bit of our attention to the actual investment. The UCU 75th anniversary special shares. The dividend is declared by the board of directors, and the value of each share is $1. The minimum purchase in this new issue is $1,000. So if you want to participate, you need to at least purchase $1,000 worth of these shares, which would equate to 1,000 shares. The maximum amount you can participate is $750,000. dollars worth, or 750,000 shares. Now the reason is because the credit union is owned by the membership, and these shares are not structured in a way for, say, an individual or a group to try and buy out the majority of the shares and then try to take over control of the credit union. That's not the purpose of it. The credit union is member owned, member controlled. They appoint, or they vote in and appoint a board of directors that oversees the work of senior management, and they all work together, and therefore the purpose is to have the members have the greatest say in how the credit union is operated. But what we do want to do is allow our membership to participate in a meaningful way, and that's why the 750,000 maximum level was put there, because the $750,000 investment would be a meaningful investment, and at 4% would provide a great return. So the dividend is declared by the board at least yearly, but the historical tradition and trend has been that we've declared that quarterly. The target is the UCU 5-year GIC rate plus 1%, or 100 basis points. And those shares have actually paid out a dividend rate that's been higher than 1% above the 5-year average GIC rate. So here's a quick graph that kind of shows the return on the Class A shares, the ones that were issued previous to this current issue of the 75th anniversary shares. In 2018, these shares paid out a return of 4%. In 2017, it was 3.81%, and in 2016, it was 3.75%. So you can see where the orange bar, or the lighter colored yellow bars, are the average 5-year GIC rate, and then the orange or darker colored bars are the average Class A share dividend. So you can see it's been much greater than the 1%. It was actually 1.7% in 2016. And you can make the calculations based on the other rates, 1.6% or 1.4% in 2018. So we've always paid much higher than that 1%, but that is the target above the 5-year rate for the dividends of the Class A shares. So in the event that you need to redeem your shares, which means you've purchased them, you own them, but you want to redeem them back because you need the cash for whatever reasons, this current new issue is not redeemable by the credit union for 5 years, which means the credit union can't purchase them back from you. So you can buy these shares. If you need to redeem them, the credit union has staff that run a book that has buyers and sellers of the shares and then matches them up. So if you buy these current issue, the 75th anniversary Class A shares, and in 6 months you want to sell them because you need the cash, you can notify the credit union that that's what you want to do. The individual who runs the book will put your name down on the list, and when they find a buyer for your shares, you'll be able to get your cash, and then the shares will be transferred over to the new buyer. That's how it works. So that's the downside of a non-marketable security, is that for every seller, a buyer needs to be found, and for every buyer, a seller needs to be found. And that's done internally by credit union staff. On a marketable security, you just buy and sell it on the market, but then the market determines what price that's going to be. And we've seen over the last several months that the markets can be at times pretty unforgiving with respect to people who want to sell. In this instance, the share price does not change on the Class A shares. It is $1 per share, and that stays the same for anybody buying or selling. It's the dividend rate that can be adjusted and can change over time, but the value of each share always is $1. The anniversary shares, again, repeating here, is an investment in Ukrainian credit union. It can only be purchased from the Ukrainian credit union and through the Ukrainian credit union, and it can only be purchased by members. So if you're not a member of the credit union, if you want to participate in these shares, you'll have to become a member by opening up an account, because these shares can only be held in an account of the Ukrainian credit union. The dividend, for tax purposes, is treated as interest income, not as a dividend in a Canadian stock. And so you do not get the Canadian stock dividend tax credit. This gets treated as interest income. And they're not publicly traded, so they do not trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange or on the New York Stock Exchange, and therefore you don't have any kind of market exposure when you hold these shares. The investment process. So let's kind of walk through a few things on how this works. So in order to purchase the shares, you need to have an offering statement, and you should go through it. It explains how the investment, it explains the details of the investment and how it works. It gives the financial and business details about the Ukrainian credit union. I believe it's as of the end of 2018, because we launched these shares, I believe, in the autumn of 2019. And so the last fiscal financial statements that were available at that time were for 2018. So that information is all in the offering statement. It also explains the risks and rewards of investing in this vehicle, and includes a statement clarifying that these shares are not deposits and therefore they are not insured. Best thing you can do is, after you get the offering statement, is to read it. If you have any questions, please ask. You can call anybody at the branches with respect to questions on the special 75th anniversary shares, and they will direct you to somebody who's more knowledgeable about them, who would be able to answer your questions. You would have to sign a subscription agreement. Then you would set aside money to invest in those shares. And when the credit union reaches its target, which is $15 million is the maximum amount that they're going to raise on this, and the minimum is $2 million, or these are being offered for a limited time, and when that limited time expires, then there will be no more shares offered, and that expiration date is June 30th, 2020. So you'll be able to see your shares on your credit union statement, because they'll be sitting in a credit union account. If you purchase them through the subscription, but then you want to cancel, you have 2 business days from the date of you signing the subscription agreement to cancel your request to purchase the shares. You've got 48 hours to think over your decision. If there are changes in your financial situation and you thought you wanted to participate but something else has come up, you have 48 hours to cancel that. Otherwise, if you want to sell the shares, you need to contact the credit union. We do have someone who can discuss that, explain it to you, and they would basically be able to line you up and look for a buyer for the shares that you have. Like I said, the minimum that's going to be sold is $2 million worth, and the maximum sold is going to be $15 million worth. As far as I know right now, there's about $10 million that have been sold of these shares, and so we're over 65% sold out. The shares have a 5-year term to be eligible as capital. All that really means is the credit union cannot redeem these shares for 5 years. But after the 5-year period, if the credit union so deems, they can extinguish or redeem these shares, and they would just purchase them from you for cash. So far in the history of the credit union, they have not done that. And the reason is because as the credit union grows, they need more regulatory capital in place. And so the purpose of this offering is to actually grow the capital base, not shrink it, so that we can continue to grow with the community, invest in people, invest in technology, so that we can offer the absolute best products and services to our members. You can cash an existing GIC or term deposit in the accounts that you currently have with the Ukrainian credit union in order to use that money to invest in these 75th anniversary shares, and you can do that without any kind of penalty. And these shares are also RRSP and TFSA eligible, although they are not RRIF or RIF eligible. They are RRSP eligible. They're $1 per share is their price, and that price doesn't change because these things do not trade on the market. The minimum amount for an individual to purchase in an account is $1,000 worth of shares or 1,000 shares. And the maximum amount is $750,000 worth or 750,000 shares. And that concludes the formal presentation. And I'll ask Yuri if he would open it up for questions. I have to stop sharing my screen.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael. That was very informative. Sign me up for 750,000 of these guys.
Thank you, Yuri. You're on.
I see we have several questions here. I think they're going to seem a little bit possibly like you've already addressed them, but I'm going to ask them anyway because I think people may not, have got all the stuff. So, who do I call if I want to buy some of these?
I think you can call anybody at the branch and let them know that you're interested. So whatever branch is most convenient for you or the ones that you use most often, or you can also call the call center and let them know that you're interested in purchasing these shares, and they will connect you with the individual that will help get you a copy of the offering statement, because without the offering statement, which I have here, without this, you cannot make the purchase, because there will be a special serial number put on the bottom of the offering statement, and that serial number will be registered to the individual that wants to purchase them, and therefore will know how much they want and in which account they're going to put the shares. It also explains everything about the shares in much greater detail than this presentation. So I would strongly encourage those that are interested to get this, sign up for it, get a serial number, and go through the offering statement.
And if I can point out, you could also get an electronic version of this. You don't need that printed copy, so right. It can be emailed to you or sent via Dropbox or some other method as well. So if you don't like a bunch of paper, you just want a soft copy, they can send it to you. Okay, so when can I sell the shares? Someone asks, do I have to wait 5 years before I can sell them?
No, you don't have to. Sorry, you don't have to wait 5 years before you sell these. You can sell them whenever you need to. The only caveat with that is that as a seller, the credit union staff have to find a buyer for your shares. So that could happen quickly, a week or two. It might take a few months, because these are not marketable securities. They don't fluctuate in value. They are valued at $1 a share. That never changes. The only thing is that a buyer needs to be found if you wish to sell them.
And that buyer has to be a credit union member themselves, right?
Correct. But there is a list of buyers and a list of sellers, and our staff that are responsible for this actually match them up. So most people have been able to sell when they needed to sell. May not have happened as fast as somebody wants. So if you're contemplating and considering purchasing these shares, remember, they're best to be something that you're going to hold on for a certain period of time, because even if you wanted to sell them immediately, you're going to be holding them until a buyer is found if you want to sell them.
And I could add something from the marketing side. I remember, this is probably going back 2 or 3 years now, we did have a member that wanted to sell a significant number of shares. It was more than what the immediate list contained, but what we did then is we sent out some marketing material in our e-newsletter and made some advertisements on our web to find members who were interested, and quite quickly found a number of people who wanted to purchase the shares that this member was selling. So as a credit union, we're going to help you find a buyer for that for those shares. We have some 23,000 members who are able to purchase these. Okay, and then the next one is how
the other thing, sorry, Yuri, for interrupting you. The other thing I just wanted to add to that is, if you want to sell, you don't have to sell the whole amount that you've got. Let's say you bought $50,000 worth of these shares, but you actually only need to sell 20,000. You can always do that. You don't have to sell the same amount that you actually bought. And that way it makes it easier for buyers to be found, because generally there's a list that's big enough of potential buyers that smaller amounts can be, sold pretty quickly. It just may take time to sell the full amount. So if you've bought 50,000, but after say a year or two or three, you need to sell 20,000 of that, you don't have to sell the full 50 that you originally purchased. You can always sell for a partial amount.
Okay, and how is the rate of return determined?
Rate of return is determined by the board of directors. And so currently it's 4%, which has gone up over the last 2 or 3 years. However, there are periods when that does get cut, and it depends on the situation in the general economy. It depends on a lot of different factors. Also depends on where interest rates are. We're at kind of near zero rates. So when you look at the 5-year GIC rate, it's so substantially higher than that 1%, which is their target, above the 5-year GIC rate. So when the economy gets back up and running and interest rates start to go back up again, then, and the credit union is growing, the board of directors will be able to make that determination. And they look at it on a quarterly basis.
Okay, well, I think that's all the questions. I don't see any more. So if you do have any additional questions, as I mentioned, I'm going to put back up this, I'm going to put up a screen that has some contact information here for you to look at. And let me just get that shared out to us. So, oops, went too far. So if you do have further questions, please contact either Michael or someone at your branch. Probably the best person to contact would be whoever you normally interact with at the branch. At each branch, there's someone who's able to, or several people even, who will be able to answer your questions. If you have any feedback about the webinar itself, please send email to marketing@ukrainiancu.com. And that could include if you have any, any ideas what you would like to hear about.